Hi, this is Molly Matthews. Welcome to Job IQ, Career Outside the Box. Today we are talking to Dr. Robert Norris. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for letting me join you.
Thank you for being here. Listening to you right now are going to be people who are thinking about making a career transition, 50, 60, 70, something they're going to do that's a little different than what they've been doing. So tell us first, what have you done for most of your career?
For 33 years, I was the senior pastor at Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Bethesda, which is a congregation of about 2,500 people.
33 years.
33 years. During that time, I also determined that one of my functions needed to be to look to the future and to provide a succession.
And that's what you did.
That's what I tried to do.
So how did you come to that? Was that one moment you had a revelation that this is what you should do, or what was the precipitating series of events that led you to make a change?
I had always heard that leaving a church was always difficult because if you'd been there a long time, you inevitably created a following that made your successor's life difficult. My predecessor went to become chaplain of the United States Senate, and I had to live under his shadow.
He knew Dr. Halverson. That was a big shadow.
And it was a great shadow. Dick
Yes.
was a wonderful man.
Yes.
But he still had a shadow.
Yes. And boy, he could sing.
He could sing.
So you're going along, you're in year 30 maybe? When did this start to happen for you?
I was in my 30th year. I had been looking for a successor. One of my associates obviously had the qualifications, and so I approached our leadership, the session of the church, and asked them to see if they would be willing to extend a call to him and allow me to continue also, but no longer as the senior pastor.
So year 30 came along. What did you do about it? Or how did you start?
I approached the session of our church, which is its leadership, and asked them to consider an associate of mine for my position that would enable me also to remain at the church, but as a support rather than as the senior pastor.
And you had developed this person, you felt he could do the job.
He had been working with me for 15 years. We'd examined him. He was a younger man. I believe the church also needs a younger voice in a new generation.
So, year 30 you do that. How long was the transition?
It took 3 years to go through the leadership of the church, then to go to the congregation, and then to go through our denominational processes. Ultimately, everyone approved, agreed, and my successor is in place.
And what was that for you emotionally, spiritually? Was there a sense of it was kind of a roller coaster, or did you feel like, were you certain it was the right thing all the way through?
I was clear it was the right thing to do. Obviously, laying down some of the responsibilities was sometimes difficult. But I had come to the place where I recognized that I spent a great part of my life doing the things that had to be done to enable me to do the things that I liked to do. Now I'm in a very different place.
And what do you like to do?
I'm a teacher, preacher, and I visit the people. I no longer go to meetings. I no longer chair budget groups, nor manage staff.
Sounds pretty joyful.
It is. It's what I trained to do and spent 30 years trying to do.
Now, when we first talked, you said there were moments that were like a twinge. Tell me about those.
I'm a preacher, and watching somebody else go into the pulpit I had been in
Really?
for 30 years caused a twinge. I still preach, but not regularly in the same way that I had done, which was something I obviously enjoyed and had built up a rapport with the congregation. It is that I miss most.
Is it? And you still preach, though?
I still preach, so I enjoy it. It's different when you do not do it on a regular and consecutive basis.
Yeah, it's sort of like you get back on the bicycle, but not as...
Yes. Yeah. I still teach quite a lot every week.
Yeah.
So I have Sunday school classes of 250 people, so it's not as though I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But there are moments when you look at the pulpit and say, oh.
Have there been moments where there are decisions? Now, you're obviously aware of the decisions because unlike some people who leave and go somewhere else, you are still in the same place, which a lot of people say that'll never work. So I have two questions about it. One is, what did you do to make it work? And two, were there times where there was a decision that you thought was crazy or wrong, and what did you do about that?
What I do to make it work is, on the whole, to be quiet. My job is to be supportive, not to confuse leadership. So one of the things I do not do is to go to the session meetings where the leadership of the church meets, even though I am supposed to, because you cannot imagine your new leadership looking in two directions, both to the new pastor and to the old one. So I'm very careful.
Yes.
When things go in a direction I would not have chosen, then because the new senior pastor is also a close friend, I would speak to him, and if he chooses to take my advice, that's fine. If he doesn't, then I swallow it and say, you are the leader.
Very, very smart. I've found being a grandparent is similar. The best thing you can do is be silent and supportive. Silent and supportive. Now, one of the reasons I ask that question is a lot of people, especially if they have been successful in one role, are used to having thoughts, answers, ideas. How hard is it to be silent?
It isn't hard to be silent, because I know that if there is something I need to say, I can talk to my friend about it, but it would always be in the privacy of a study, never publicly. Publicly, he will always enjoy 100% support from me. That's my role.
Yeah, that's great. One other question about that. Do you think people over 50 face a certain amount of discrimination or difficulties in the workplace?
Absolutely. I would not imagine how difficult it would be to go out and try and get a job after that. You look at the sorts of requirements for a pastor, and they always say 40 years old. People don't look for pastors who are 55.
I think that's true in a lot of fields.
They want all the experience, but they do not want the age responsibility. And I suspect because they're afraid that perhaps their health is going to fail and they're going to be lumbered with someone with illness.
Yeah, or how long are they going to stay?
Yes.
If you were to have a congregant or someone that you were counseling come to you, and they're over 50, over 60, looking to do either something they love and they don't want to get paid, or they really need the work, what kind of advice do you give them?
I try and help them find a place that they can go to. In the church we have a counseling department, and some of the counseling is designed for jobs, so that you're looking to help people find new opportunities. Older people in this area bring a great deal of experience in all sorts of things. And being able to place them even for part-time is much easier than it would appear in some areas.
And how important is the network of the church, or the network that people have in their lives? Do you build a network? Is that part of it?
It is. We're also a large church, which means that you have a number of resources, and people have opportunities either in their own firms or in places they know of. So it's easier to help people.
Yeah. One of the problems that I've seen working in workforce development is the discouragement of resumes over 50 might not even get in the pile for interviews. And then there becomes a cycle of sensing you're not getting where you need to go, you get depressed, you start doing less and less, and there's a lot of studies that show at a certain point people just quit, they stop looking for work. Because you do counsel a lot of people in this area, what do you do in a case like that where someone has been trying to get for a job over 6 months and they haven't found one?
The first thing we do is to put them into a small group of other men who can encourage them, so that there is always somewhere to go, that they can talk, other people can help, and then we encourage them to know where they want to put their next years, how long they want to be there. And we can't always find jobs for them, but at least they have a support network so that they don't have to walk through that process all on their own. Yeah.
And is there a volunteer base at the church where people can volunteer as a way?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of volunteers, and all these small groups are volunteers. They're members of our congregation, some who have retired, some who still, though retired, exercise influence in the areas that they worked. A number of them came from positions of fair responsibility, and so they understand when someone is looking and what it does to the psyche not to have a job.
I think especially people really, when they identify with what they've been doing, they've also lost a little bit of their identity.
That's exactly right. And if they've had a senior management position, they find themselves suddenly cut adrift, and one day you were important and another day you weren't. One example of that, a friend of mine was the director of one of our government agencies, and one day he held the key to the offices. The day he retired, he couldn't go into the office.
Wow.
And the awful feeling that gives.
Yeah, exactly. So you've never had that experience. Where do you see where do you see your future? Do you see another pivot at another point, or is this something you can do until you decide,
Certainly it's something I can do. One of the things I never want to do is to outlive my usefulness. Mm-hmm. There will come a time when it's important for me to not be at the church at all, so that there can be a complete break. At that point, I still use my gifts in terms of teaching, and so I teach at a seminary, and while I'm able to intellectually, I would continue to want to do that. And even after I can no longer teach at a seminary, I would still preach just because I love preaching.
And you also write, is that
correct? I write. Although writing comes much harder because I'm a perfectionist and each sentence takes a great deal of time to craft.
I understand. Well, Philip Roth finally gave it up, right? He found out, I'm not doing this anymore. When you look back at this transition you've made, what is the best part of it, and what has there been a moment that really felt like the worst part, or you didn't like it?
The best part is that I don't have to go to meetings. I see my successor go to meeting after meeting after meeting that are about budgets and personnel and the things that you love to do, to preach. You don't do, and you are driven away from people because you don't have time to go do the hospital calls that I can do and to be with people in their need. The worst part for me was when I came back, because the session had asked me to take a sabbatical. They granted me 8 months. When I came back and saw everybody else going on with their life and the direction continued, and I had not been a part of it, the sudden feeling you were no longer leading this institution. It didn't take long, but I still remember the feeling, an ache where you once were.
How much of the fact that you had made the choice made that a little easier?
It was much easier to do that because I had asked to do that. And one of our wise men had said to me, "Rob, you do not have to do this, you know." And I said, "No, it is the right thing for me. It is for the church. It isn't the easiest thing for either of us." But right made it much easier to do.
Those 33 years went fast, didn't they?
They did. I can't imagine where they have gone.
I look back at that too. What would you tell someone else in the position that you were in? And is there anything I forgot to ask you that you want to say to people?
I think one of the things I would say is plan for the next stage, because it will come whether you want it to or not. To think about it, to plan for it, and emotionally to come to terms with the fact that this is not going to be something that will last forever. An example of that came to me. I was going to see my mother in Wales. I was on the airplane and I was listening to two men talking about their careers. And I thought, mine is over. How strange does that mean? That doesn't mean I don't do things and I'm not useful, but in terms of a career, I don't think like that anymore.
I haven't asked other people this question, but because you are a pastor, how has your faith sustained you in making these choices and moving along?
I have a strong faith in Christ, and I believe that there was a sense of leading, that as I was going in one direction, so it was the right direction for the church. That if God has a plan, it is not two different plans, and therefore there was a rightness about it, which sustained me when emotionally it didn't feel as though it was exactly what you wanted.
What I think is that, because I have a faith as well, the idea that I think of this planet and this life as a vacation, and at a point you get the vacation's over, but it doesn't mean you're not going to have another vacation. It doesn't mean you're not going to have another exciting adventure. It's just going to be on a different plane or at a different time that we don't really know fully right now.
Exactly. If you live your life understanding that this is a preparation for the next stage, then it sets both a moral compass and also it gives you a sense that you have a purpose, you're going somewhere.
Yes, yes. And that helps a great deal, especially in those days where you go, what have I done?
Exactly.
Or how's this all gone by? Did you feel you had to take a step backward and that you had to get different skills, or was this a pretty easy thing for you to do?
It wasn't easy because as I moved into a new role, it was more reading in more detailed areas, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it was also something that I had to learn because so much of my time had been involved in other things. And as I teach more in seminary, of course, all that I had learned is ancient history, so you have to read a great deal more to stay current.
You had actually gone from running a large business. It was a very different job in a way.
Absolutely, it was. The budget of the church was $5 million, so
Exactly.
that you were partly responsible for raising all of that and the staffing.
Yeah. So overall, though, it sounds like you sort of laid down a certain burden to do what you really love.
I'm enjoying everything that I do now.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. This is Job IQ, Career Outside the Box. You can subscribe down below and check our website out for more information. Take care.